What's up, allies? We are back for another midweek review, and today we're taking a trip to the world of Richard Scarry and taking a look at the new action figures, if I don't drop them, from Super 7. Alright, allies, we are back, and just a little something different this time. If you grew up in the 80s, there's no question that you were familiar with Richard Scarry's Busy Town, the books that involved characters such as Hucklecat, Lowly Worm, and such. And, back in those days, for whatever reason, we never got any action figures. There really was not a lot in terms of merchandise for Richard Scarry's, but there were some dolls, there were some books, there were some toys or whatever, but one thing that seemed to be lacking back then was action figures. Well, Super 7 has recently issued these. They've put these out. There's three different figures initially, and when we saw the pictures initially, it was just the main figure. But as we've come to learn now, as they're out, it's actually 5 characters. As in a couple of these, there's 2 to a pack. Here we have a Hucklecat and Lowly Worm, which I think is certainly the ones that most people remember right off the bat. We have Banana Gorilla, and of course we have Hilda Hippo. And so we're going to take a look at these and do a review and see how Super 7 did. All right, everyone. So my normal setup wasn't going to work to review these because they're so large and the way the chairs are, and we're here in the alley. So it is what it is. All right. So we're going to start by taking a look at the packaging on these guys. I think they're nice. This is sort of a mixed bag, guys, with the packaging here. Let me explain why. So from a standpoint of how they look, I think they look great. It's very, very clear that we've got Richard Scarry here. It's his designs, it's his artwork. They look amazing. I think the color choice was good for the cards. On the back, you've got all the relevant legal information on the bottom and such, and Super 7 and branding, and then of course you have images of the different characters that are offered in this wave. There is Banana's Gorilla. Give you a closer look. We'll get a look at the figures out of the package here shortly. And here is Hucklecat, and he is accompanied by Lowly Worm. And then we have, there's Hilda Hippo with Goldbug. Trying to get the light out of the way there. There we go. So there's all 3 of them. And they look pretty cool. That's the good news about the packaging. The bad news is, Super 7, we need to talk about your shipping methods here or something. If you are an on-card collector, you order directly from Super 7 because you want to avoid shelfware, you want to avoid damage. And in this case, we have not been able to do so. I don't know how well the camera is going to pick this up. This corner right here is all buggered up. And that's just for something that's brand new and directly from the factory. I can't see how that's even happening. On this one, this is going to be really hard to see, but the bubble wasn't put on correctly. It's hanging off of the side here. And then, in addition to that, on this one, the punch is actually loose. So it's actually punched. It's not... I've managed to put it back into place for purposes of this review and such, but a bottom line, when it came out of the package, it looked like that. There we go. It had popped open. So it's not even unpunched. And then this corner is buggered up as well. And then on the third card here, just different places, it's like it's dinged all around the outside. And that's a shame. If you're an on-card collector, the shipping here is not getting it done. They're not packaged well enough to keep them safe. There's no like mailer boxes around these, and then they're put in a shipping box. It's not happening that way. It's just simply these are wrapped up and tossed in a chipper and they're sent out. And as you can see, they're getting dinged up, they're getting damaged somewhere in transport. So if you're an on-card collector, this is not good at all. I just can't get behind this. Now, in my case, I'm going to tear these open, so it doesn't really matter. But as a reviewer, as somebody reviewing, it is important for me to mention because I have to assume that a third to half the collectors are keeping these on cards, and if that's the case, they want the packaging to be as nice as possible. And for a company that it's even listed right here at the top that this is for an adult. This is an adult collectible, not a toy. I mean, they know who they're making it for, and this packaging should be better than this. Super 7, I'm watching you. It needs to be better than that. So let's get them open, and we'll take a look at each of them individually. All right, so first up here we have Bananas Gorilla. He comes with a little bunch of bananas, as you would expect. And he is a 5-point articulation figure, so we've got the head that swivels, the arms move, and of course the legs move as well. Legs are a little tight, and the range of motion is not the best on these. And it's also important to note that they move forward maybe about that much, and that's about all the distance you're going to get on them. And it's largely because of the way these are sculpted in order to look like what they're supposed to look like. But the trade-off is that, and if you can see this, the way this cuts in at the back, it prevents the legs can't go back at all. So they are somewhat limited. But, I suppose you're not really buying this for, a lot of action movement. It is, after all, Richard Scarry. And the arms do move just fine. And they will actually pretty much rotate all the way around. They run into a little danger right here where the fur is coming out from right behind the ears there. But overall, you can get a good range of motion out of the arms. And the head turns as much as you would want it to, and that makes perfect sense. Again, these are, of course, to evoke the 5-point articulation figures from the late 70s, early 80s, and they did not have the greatest articulation either, so I would say that this appropriates that just fine, and it comes together okay. He will hold his bananas very easily. I wonder if he holds them in both hands. Yep, sure does. He'll hold them in both hands. Paint job is really, really nice. I'm not seeing any overpaint or anything of the sort. He's in really, really great shape. One of the things I have to say I like about this figure, and I like about all three of these, is that the paint job on them you'll see is a matte paint. And what's nice about that is that it evokes that two-dimensional image, that drawing image, even though it's in three-dimensional form. And he absolutely, there's no question who this character is. I mean, it's definitely him. I grew up with these books, of course, as many of us did, and it's nice to actually have, some action figures of these guys. So he's pretty cool. Let's take a look at the next one then. All right, now as I stated a little earlier, these guys, when you first saw the images of these, when they dropped on social media, they were showing just the figures, so these two and Hucklecat. And I remember in the comments, and I was one that commented on this, where's Lowly Worm? You couldn't have this without Lowly Worm. And one of the things we have then eventually learned, of course, as you saw the the pictures of them in packages, is that although Bananas here comes with some bananas, the other two actually come with a smaller character from Busy Town that would have been too small to package on their own. And in this case, we have Goldbug, who is in his little vehicle here. I'm going to try and show this. There we go. I hope that's coming in focus. Isn't he adorable? So he comes with Hilda here, and is basically her accessory. Her accessory is essentially another character. Now, much like Gorilla's here, Hilda's arms will rotate all the way around. The head is fantastic. It's moving all over the place. Her legs essentially are split right here because of the skirt. And ooh, wow, they're stiff. They're a little stiff, but you can move them. And much like him, the sculpt does mean that you've got a limit in terms of how far it's going to go. And much like the other ones, it won't come back. And it's because of the way the skirt is split back here. So the sculpts do limit their movement a little bit, but overall, I imagine these are probably just going to stand in a collection. They're not superheroes or anything that you'd have them in fighting poses. So, I don't really know how much you need. And again, the paint job on her is just fantastic. It looks great. Very, very well painted. Great detail on her. I'll give you a closer look on her. And again, these managed to evoke that drawing really, really well. So let's get to what I consider to be the best one, the last one, and take a look at that. All right, so last up we have Hucklecat and Lowly Worm. Unfortunately, you notice I'm holding Lowly, and that's because, yeah, that's about all you're going to get out of him. I thought maybe it was because I was on the plastic, but even setting him on the table, he just falls over. And it looks like if you look at him straight on, it looks like he sort of bends to one side, and what it's doing is it's throwing off the balance on him, and so he's just tipping over because he's top heavy on this side. That's a little disappointing. He's not. He's mildly bendy. I wouldn't call him bendy on purpose. I think it's just more the shape of his body and such. Let me see if I can sort of get this to... Yeah, there we go. There we go. So I did get him to stand. You may have to bend him a little bit to get him to do that, but I don't know if he'll hold that pose over for a long period of time. Worst case scenario, you might have to take a little heat to him, a little heat, and have some ice water there that you can kind of get him standing, and then dunk him in ice water to freeze him in that position. You might have to do that. There's also a little bit of tape over him in the package that holds him into the little tray. So just be mindful of it as you're taking him out, that you don't want to be aggressive with it, that you might pull some paint off of him or whatever. In my case, it came off just fine and I didn't have an issue, but it's something to look out for. Of course, Hucklecat is who he is the accessory for, I guess you could say. Hucklecat looks great, much like the others. Arm movement is great. Head movement's great. The legs are literally just as limited as the others. And Huckle also has a tail back here, and the tail will spin around. So he actually has a 6th point of articulation, and I think that's pretty cool. Whoops, and there goes Lowly. And I think that warrants mentioning. So, yeah, all three of them are great. One of the things that I think all of these guys have captured, let me give you a little close-up of Lowly there. I know he's super popular. He was always my favorite as a kid. And I'm sorry, the camera's doing an autofocus thing. I apologize. There we go. That works. You're seeing Lowly really well. And he's pretty cool. They could have just sold a Lowly Worm and I would have bought it. Honestly, Lowly was my favorite character as a kid, and I'm really, really pleased to have him. But having the set, I think, really makes it great. One of the things that I don't have much left over from childhood related to Richard Scarry. The only thing I have is a Scratch and Sniff sticker book. I'll put a picture of it here. It's to market, and that utilize these characters. It was a Mother Goose book, of course. And so that's the only other thing I have, Richard Scarry, and of course that's vintage. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put these guys in a shadow box with the book behind it. I think it'd be a great way to display it. And in case you want some information, I have a little helpful hint that I'm going to stick in right here. Alright, so you just heard me mention that the possibility exists of me putting these into a shadow box, and a lot of people wonder, what's the best way to do that? Well, when you get shadow boxes, you're really looking at 3 measurements. You're looking at how wide it is, how high it is, and probably the most important one is how deep it is, because you have to make sure that it's going to fit whatever it is that you're putting into it. So in this case, one of the hardest things that people have when they're going to put action figures in is they're trying to figure out how to measure the depth of the box, how to get the right depth for the action figures that they're going to put in. One of the easiest ways to do that is to measure while it's still on the card or in the package, because what you can do is if you turn the package to the side, you'll notice that the bubble does not touch the character. So all you have to do is put a measuring device of your choice on the top there, and that will tell you how deep at a minimum that the shadow box needs to be. So we're back, and final thoughts here on these guys. One of the things that this accomplishes really, really well is it's taking two-dimensional designs and turning them into three-dimensional characters. And this really, really does exceed expectations in that respect. The paint jobs on them are fantastic. I love on Hucklecat here how that orange just fades in to that the white on his face. I just think it looks fantastic. All of the paint applications on these guys are beautiful and clean, even in places like here on Hilda's little pink socks down there. There's no overpaint at all. These things are painted absolutely beautifully, and there's a huge emphasis on character design. You can see all the watches on both sides of Bananas there. Everything looks great. You can even see there's detail of a couple of watches. I don't know how well this is going to pick up. Right where his feet meet the pants, and of course the pants are overhanging them a little bit. But nevertheless, all of that's there. The accessories look great. Lowly is painted beautifully, as you saw, as is Goldbug, and the bananas look great as well. All in all, this is a really, really beautiful set. Probably one of the best things I love about it is the paint, and where it really, really succeeds here is in the fact that as I stated earlier, because they used a matte finish on the paint, it really evokes that drawing sense from these characters. Whereas with a lot of action figures, this is just as an example here. I just happen to have this sitting here, a vintage sorceress from the Masters of the Universe line. You can see that there's a shine to her because they generally have like a gloss finish on to complete them. In this case, they've put on a finish that is matte in order to make sure that it really does feel like those characters have walked right off the page from Richard Scarry's Busy Town, and I think they would look really, really, really fantastic, or Busy World, depending on what book you're looking at or whatever. So I think that they really achieved the goal, and despite the fact that they do have a couple little things, the packaging being dinged and damaged or whatever, I don't expect that coming directly from the manufacturer, and that's something that I think Super 7 should work on. They definitely need the package. I can't imagine it came right out of the factory like that. I have a feeling it was in transport, because the packaging wasn't as good as it could have been in terms of protecting the stuff from point A to point B, and they do need to work on that, and there definitely needs to be improvement on that so that you don't have those types of issues for people that are collecting these and want them to stay on the card. In my case, although the only reason I'm mentioning it is because I'm doing a review for everybody, not just for myself. And in my case, it didn't matter because I was taking them off the card. But there are those that keep things in the package, and in that case, you want to make sure that they actually look really, really good. That's an area of opportunity that I think Super 7 needs to look at. In addition to that, I think the other downside is in being faithful to the drawings, the articulation is somewhat limited. But I have to be perfectly frank, in this case, I'm not really all that concerned about that. All they really have to do is stand there and they look cool. Lowly, like I said, you may have to bend them around a little bit to get him to stand. I have managed to do that. He's looking good. Overall, I think this set is fantastic, and it is a recommend from me. If you are like me and you love these characters as a kid, this is a set that you are absolutely going to want to have. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you got something out of it. Make sure to please like, share, and subscribe here to 80s Allies, and stick around. We do all kinds of cool stuff. And until then, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.